You've been noticing it, haven't you? Things that don't quite add up. Moments that feel like déjà vu, but sharper, more insistent. Numbers repeating everywhere you look. People from your past suddenly contacting you out of nowhere. Dreams so vivid they feel more real than your waking life. Time doing weird things. Hours disappearing or stretching impossibly long. You thought you were losing it. You thought maybe you're just stressed, tired, imagining things. But you're not. What's happening is that reality is preparing you for a quantum leap. And these signs, these glitches, these impossible coincidences, they're not random. They're the universe's way of telling you that you're about to jump timelines. Most people miss this completely. They're so locked into their current version of reality that when the signs start showing up, they dismiss them. They rationalize them away. They convince themselves it's nothing. And then the window closes. The opportunity passes. And they stay exactly where they are, wondering why their life never changes. But you're different. You're here. You're reading this. Which means some part of you knows something's happening. Some part of you recognizes that you're standing at a threshold. And what I'm about to tell you will either confirm what you've been sensing or blow your mind completely open. Here's what nobody explains about how reality actually works. You think you're living in one solid, continuous timeline. One reality moving forward in a straight line from past to future. But that's not what's happening. You're constantly shifting between versions of reality. Millions of slightly different timelines exist simultaneously, and your consciousness is always choosing which one to experience next. Most of the time, these shifts are so small you don't notice them. You move from one version of reality to a nearly identical version, and it feels like continuity. Like you're still in the same life, but every once in a while, a much bigger shift becomes possible. A jump to a dramatically different timeline. A version of reality where your circumstances, your relationships, your opportunities, even your identity are fundamentally different. That's a quantum leap. And when one is about to happen, reality starts sending you signals. It has to. Because a leap that big requires your participation. It requires your awareness. It requires you to consciously choose to step through the doorway that's opening. So what are these signals? What shows up when you're about to quantum leap? Let me tell you exactly what to look for, because once you know, you'll see them everywhere. First, synchronicities explode. Not just little coincidences. Massive, undeniable. This can't be random synchronicities. You think about someone and they immediately call you. You need something and it appears within hours. You ask a question internally and the answer shows up in the next conversation you overhear. It's like reality is responding directly to your thoughts faster than physics should allow. This happens because you're getting close to a timeline where the barrier between thought and manifestation is thinner. Your consciousness is starting to operate at a higher level of coherence, where intention and outcome are more tightly connected. The synchronicities aren't magic. They're you briefly touching a version of reality where creation happens faster. Second, time gets strange, really strange. You'll have days that feel like they lasted 5 minutes and hours that feel like they lasted forever. You'll look at a clock, look away, look back, and somehow 10 minutes passed, but it felt like one. Or you'll sit down for what you think is a few minutes and suddenly it's been 2 hours. This happens because you're existing between timelines. Your consciousness is literally in transition, moving from one version of reality to another. And during that transition, your relationship to linear time becomes unstable. You're touching eternity. You're experiencing the timeless space between moments. And that space, that's where the leap happens. Third, your old life starts falling apart. Not in a tragedy way necessarily, but in a everything suddenly feels wrong way. Jobs that were fine become unbearable. Relationships that were comfortable become suffocating. Places that felt like home suddenly feel like prison. Nothing fits anymore. Nothing makes sense anymore. You feel like an alien in your own life. This isn't a breakdown. This is preparation. You can't leap to a radically different timeline while still being completely invested in your current one. Reality has to loosen your grip. It has to make your current circumstances feel so uncomfortable, so misaligned, so obviously wrong that you're willing to let them go. Because you won't jump while you're still clinging. Fourth, you become hypersensitive to energy. Other people's moods affect you intensely. Crowded places become overwhelming. You can feel when someone's lying. You can sense the emotional texture of rooms. You can't tolerate certain foods, certain sounds, certain environments anymore. Your nervous system is suddenly operating at a completely different level. This happens because your consciousness is recalibrating. You're tuning to a different bandwidth of reality. And during that tuning process, you're more open, more receptive, more aware of subtle energies that you used to filter out. It feels overwhelming because you haven't learned to manage this new level of sensitivity yet. But it's actually a sign that your perception is expanding. Fifth, you have vivid, symbolic dreams. Dreams where you're flying. Dreams where you're in places that don't exist. Dreams where you're a different version of yourself. Dreams that feel prophetic. Dreams that stay with you for days, echoing through your waking consciousness, carrying meanings you can't quite articulate, but definitely feel. These aren't just dreams. They're reconnaissance missions. Your consciousness is exploring the timeline you're about to leap into, getting familiar with its energetic signature, preparing you for what's coming. When you dream, you're not bound by the same rules as waking consciousness. You can access other timelines freely. And right before a leap, those other timelines start bleeding through. By the way, our shared space of light and awareness is on its way to 100,000 people. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and brings this moment closer. Sixth, you feel inexplicably drawn to new things. Subjects you never cared about suddenly fascinate you. Skills you never considered suddenly feel essential. Places you never wanted to visit suddenly call to you. It's like some invisible force is rearranging your desires, redirecting your attention, preparing you for a version of your life you haven't imagined yet. This is your future self reaching back. The timeline you're about to leap into is pulling you toward it, activating interests and passions that will be relevant there. Your consciousness is receiving downloads of information about where you're going, and it's manifesting as sudden new interests and desires. Trust them. Follow them. They're breadcrumbs. Seventh, old people and patterns resurface. Ex-partners reach out. Old friends reappear. Past conflicts resurface. It's like your entire history is coming back for review. And it feels confusing because you thought you were done with all of that. You thought you moved on, Why is everything from the past suddenly demanding attention? Because you're about to leave this timeline, and before you do, you need to complete it. You need to resolve whatever's unfinished. You need to say whatever needs to be said. You need to forgive whatever needs to be forgiven. The timeline you're leaving doesn't want to hold you back with unresolved threads. So it brings everything forward for closure. Eighth, you feel simultaneously terrified and excited. There's this buzz in your chest, this electricity in your body that's equal parts anxiety and anticipation. You can't tell if something amazing is about to happen or if everything's about to fall apart. You're restless, unable to settle, unable to commit to anything because everything feels temporary. That feeling, that's you standing at the edge of the leap. That's you sensing the gap between timelines. That's your consciousness recognizing that the ground beneath you is about to disappear, and you're going to have to trust that there's something solid to land on. It's terrifying because it is. Quantum leaps require faith. They require you to step into empty space and trust that reality will catch you. So now you know what shows up. Now you know what these signs mean. But here's the crucial question. What do you do with this information? How do you actually navigate a quantum leap without sabotaging it? Because most people do. Most people get to this exact point, see all the signs, feel all the energy, and then panic. And when they panic, they grab onto their current reality even harder. They try to make things work that clearly aren't working anymore. They ignore the signs. They convince themselves they're being irrational, and the window closes. Don't do that. If you're seeing these signs, you're being invited to leap. And the leap happens through surrender, not control. You don't make a quantum leap happen. You allow it. You stop resisting the dissolution of your old life. You stop trying to force your current circumstances to work. You stop clinging to identities and roles and relationships that don't fit anymore. Here's the practical instruction. When you notice these signs showing up, start by acknowledging them. Don't dismiss them. Don't rationalize them. Just notice. Say to yourself, something's shifting. Reality's talking to me. I'm being prepared for something. Then create space. Space in your schedule. Space in your environment. Space in your mind. Cancel commitments that feel draining. Clear out physical clutter. Stop consuming so much information. Stop filling every moment with distraction. The leap happens in emptiness. It happens in the gaps. If your life is completely full, there's no room for a new timeline to enter. Next, follow the impulses. When you feel drawn to something new, explore it. When you feel called to reach out to someone, do it. When you feel compelled to learn something, start learning. These aren't random whims. These are instructions from your future self. These are the coordinates of the timeline you're moving toward. Trust them even when they don't make logical sense. At the same time, complete what needs completing. Have the conversations you've been avoiding. Forgive the people you've been resenting. Release the grudges you've been holding. Say goodbye to the versions of yourself you've outgrown. You can't carry baggage through a quantum leap. The jump requires you to be light, unencumbered, free, and most importantly, stay present with the discomfort. Don't try to make it go away. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to return to how things were before. The discomfort is the transition. The discomfort is you existing between worlds. If you can sit with it, if you can breathe through it, if you can let it be exactly what it is, without needing to change it, you'll move through it. Because here's what happens on the other side of a quantum leap. You wake up one day and everything's different. Not dramatically, not obviously, but fundamentally. The people in your life are different. The opportunities available to you are different. Your own energy is different. And you look around and think, how did I get here? When did this shift happen? It happened gradually and then all at once. It happened through 1,000 small choices to trust instead of control, to release instead of grip, to follow instead of force. And suddenly you're living a life that would have seemed impossible from where you were before. Not because you worked harder, not because you figured it out, but because you allowed yourself to leap. The timeline you're moving toward already exists. It's not something you have to create. It's something you have to choose. And the signs showing up right now, they're reality telling you that the choice point is here. The doorway is open. The leap is available. Most people will ignore this. Most people will talk themselves out of it. Most people will decide it's safer to stay where they are, even if where they are is killing them slowly. But you're not most people. You're someone who recognizes these signs. You're someone who feels the pull. You're someone who knows deep down that you're meant for a completely different version of reality than the one you're currently experiencing. So let yourself leap. Let yourself trust. Let yourself surrender to the dissolution of what no longer serves you. Let yourself step into the unknown without knowing where you'll land, because the unknown is where all quantum leaps happen. The unknown is where new timelines exist. The unknown is where your future self is waiting for you to arrive. And when you do arrive, when you complete the leap and land in the new timeline, you'll look back at this moment and understand. You'll see how every sign was perfectly placed. You'll see how every synchronicity was guiding you. You'll see how everything that fell apart needed to fall apart. You'll see that you were never lost. You were always exactly where you needed to be to make the jump. The signs are showing up because you're ready. Not perfectly ready. Not completely ready. But ready enough. And in the architecture of reality, ready enough is all it takes. The universe doesn't wait for you to feel completely confident. It doesn't wait for you to have it all figured out. It just waits for you to be willing. Willing to trust. Willing to let go. Willing to step into the gap between who you were and who you're becoming. That willingness is everything. That willingness is the key that unlocks the door between timelines. And if you're feeling it right now, if something in you is saying yes, even though your mind is screaming no, then trust the yes. Trust the pull. Trust the signs. Trust that reality knows what it's doing. Trust that you're being guided towards something far beyond what you can currently imagine. If this video showed you signs you've been seeing, write in the comments, "I'm ready to leap." Write it as your declaration. Write it as your permission. Write it as your yes to the timeline that's calling you. Nobody,